again, the growth stages, we're going to start today with think. So if you would turn your pages to 71, we're going to talk about the 9 ways that the millionaire real estate agent thinks. Number 1, they're powered by a big why. Number 2, think big goals and big models. These are their foundational trains of thought. Supporting trains of thought include think possibilities, think action, think without fear, think progress, think competitively and strategically, think standards, think service. Let's start with the big why. There's a lot of reasons why, let's face it, there's a lot of reasons why we get up and come to work every day. It could be paying off that automobile. It could be paying the mortgage. It could be paying for education. It could be taking care of our parents. It could be earning $1 million in real estate. Whatever that why is, build it up. Take the time to sit there and plot this out. You can see it's building up to what my big why is. In the MREA, Gary discusses the collective consensus was that at the top, I should say, the biggest why is to be the best versions of ourselves that we can be. In theory, there's really nothing higher than that, and anything and everything we want to accomplish can be accomplished through that mindset. So take the time, reflect on you personally. If you want to work on this as an exercise, we can certainly sit down together and do it. I meet with agents all the time and we work through this. Sometimes it takes a little bit of a process for discovery. I sort of also go back personally and kind of challenge myself on some of the individual pieces, but constantly pushing for the top. What can get me to be the best I can be, whether it's investing in training, education, systems, tools, people, all those things. What can get me there to where I want to go to be the best version of myself? I think there's not to be overlooked in terms of thinking. Gary talks about in the book about building a 20-lane highway. I don't know if you ever thought about it, but we have one in New Jersey. It's called the New Jersey Turnpike. That road clearly did not start out as a 20-lane highway, but it is today. It started out as a single highway, but it also became the model for the American highway system. So they started with the end in mind. They knew it would be a major undergoing project, and they built for the long term when they started laying that highway out. And we can see it change and evolve in our own lifetime. I remember when they moved the merge, the quote-unquote merge, from exit 8A down to exit 6 to get some of the north-south traffic going east and west to Pennsylvania and to the shore. This was a huge improvement. I remember commuting home on Friday afternoons, and you would easily sit in an 18-mile backup from exit 9 all the way down to 8A, or an 8 beyond that actually to the merge. And once the merge was moved down a few miles down below that, it completely disappeared. So the whole idea that Gary's trying to convey to us here, the MREA, is that we need to start with how we think. Think long-term, think big models. Number 1 starts with yourself. Why are you doing this, and what are the things you're trying to accomplish? So do that exercise. If you haven't done it lately, maybe you don't know what your life purpose is. I think some things are pretty obvious, taking care of children, taking care of parents. But go beyond that. If you've never done that exercise, and as you check off those things, ask yourself what's next. What would I do if I had all those things accomplished? Where would I go? What would I do next? Gary talks about it in the 5th series of Think Like a CEO, Wealth Building. Finding your true purpose in life. The goal of business is to fund the perfect life. What's that perfect life look like for you? Is philanthropy your thing? Is coaching and training, consulting people your thing? What, if all things are taken care of, what would you be doing with yourself? And then we can talk separately about wealth building to fund that opportunity. Value proposition is later on pages 94 to 95, but I want to just spend a little bit of time here around the nine topics around the way the MREA thinks. Number two is models. Big goals and big models. And why do we do that? The reason we do that is because, number one, models are easy to follow. A lot of people have come before us. That's the whole point of the MREA. There's a lot of things laid out here that we can use and apply to our businesses. Big goals allows us to think beyond what we're actually able to achieve, and it will actually pull us through smaller goals to get us to even higher goals. You know, often we set goals that might be either too low and easily achieved, and what happens is we stop actually working. We stop actually working harder to push to the next level. If you are meeting your goals, then it's definitely an opportunity and time to raise the bar. If you're setting goals high enough and you're still falling a little bit short, have no fear. It's not a failure. You're still making gains, more gains than you would if you had set lower goals. So don't be afraid to not meet your goals and setting them too high. It's never going to be an issue because it's going to actually pull you through and get you to where you want to go. The third model is think possibilities. Just to touch on that, it starts with the idea of thinking that you can do this. Whatever you set your mind to, you can do it. You know, they say that computers and the human brain are very similar. In fact, computers are designed based upon the human brain. But the most important part is that both of them believe what we tell them. So if we tell ourselves that we can't do something, we're going to believe it. On the other hand, if we tell ourselves we can do it and there is a way to do it and a path to get there, our minds will actually start to believe it. And as we implement those things and do those things, all those little activities that we do will get us to our bigger goal. And in fact, over time, thinking possibilities actually turns into thinking probabilities. Those activities that we first processed, as they become habits, the benefits start to spin off of that. And what used to be just a possibility is now becoming a probability. It's an actual likelihood that you're going to be successful. If you're lead generating every day and you're consistent about it, it's not a possibility that you're going to have leads coming from that and appointments and opportunities, transactions. It will become a certainty. It will become a probability. So as we continue to push through possibilities into the world of probabilities, don't lose hope along the way. Think action. So we got to do something, right? So think action is all about, now we have these models, we have these big goals. We actually have to act on them. We have to get out there and put the energy into it. In MREA, it talks about, in this section, a couple of references to Castaway with Tom Hanks in the movie. If you're familiar with that, the character in the movie is marooned on an island for several years, and he's really left among himself, to kind of find the motivation to keep himself going. The biggest piece is the chance of rescue. And this is what motivates Tom Hanks' character throughout the movie to keep going. It keeps him alive on the island, and it actually also eventually gives him the willpower to actually rescue himself. But it's a great movie, and there's a lot of great insights there. So definitely look at that. Number 5 is think without fear. There is no failure. You either win or you learn. Either one is okay. There's a couple great quotes in MREA. I love the quote on bottom of page 86, Joe Rothschild. I have no fear about calling people or knocking on doors. That is how you make business happen. Top producer agents know that they have to push through things that, not that they can't do them, but maybe they're uncomfortable or they dislike them because they're more focused on the goal in the end. So they don't worry about if a new marketing strategy or tactic doesn't work. They hold their money accountable, they'll test it, experiment with it, and then see what the results are until they find the right recipe or formula for them. They're never afraid to take risks. It's pushing forward to the next thing. But we have to take action. We can't sit back and wait for the phone to ring. We can't sit back and wait for deals to close themselves. We have to be in action. We have to be in purposeful. There's another great story referenced in MREA on page 87 from the 2002 Winter Olympics. One of the ice skaters, relatively popular at the time, Apollo Antonotto, in the final race for the gold medal was involved in an accident. One of the racers tripped. The majority of skaters fell down, and actually the very last skater who didn't fall down made it across the line and won gold. But what was the most important thing for Apollo was that despite that setback and that catastrophe and that complete disaster and failure, he picked himself up and managed to push himself over the line to win in silver. And go back and find that on YouTube if you can. But it's a great moment. But while the other skaters had fallen down and had essentially given up, he saw it as an opportunity to move forward. And so what would have been a disaster and no medal for him, he ended up with silver, which, by the way, silver's not too bad. I'll take a silver Olympic medal anytime. Number 6 is think progress. Personally, think progress has been a little bit challenging at times because sometimes I feel like I'm not making enough progress fast enough. So sometimes we have to take the time to reflect on the small wins and the small gains that we have. But we have to maintain our effort and persistency. This is another word, persistency. Tenacity and persistency will help us to overcome and push through any challenges that we're having. So be kind to yourself, acknowledge your wins, stay positive, and continue pushing forward. Remember, progress is about quantity and repetition. There's a story in MREA on pages 88, talks about the potters. 2 groups of potters, one that was set out to make a large quantity, a large volume of pots. The other one was set out to make the perfect pot. What ultimately ends up is that the group that was building the quality or the quantity of pots ended up making the best quality also. So the quality is in the quantity. Whatever the activities are, you have to put the time into them, and you have to do them over and over again, repeatedly, long term. Again, failures are just stepping stones and part of the learning process. Don't let negative outcomes derail your enthusiasm. Top producing agents think progress all the time. Progress is important, and it's usually achieved by the person who makes the most attempts. I'll say it again, progress is usually made by the person who makes the most attempts. So keep trying. Number 7 is think competitively and think strategically. I think Keller Williams does this a lot. As a leading real estate company, I think we see Gary and our leadership thinking competitively and strategically all the time. If you look at every tool and resource that the company has ever given to its agents, it was based upon competitive strategic mindsets. And you could take a look at that on page 89 through 91. Again, more references to different athletes and situations where thinking competitively and strategically, people were able to push ahead. There's a great story in there about one of the ladies, the women's soccer team at a university, where they actually had to change their behaviors. They started to think of each other. At first, they were not as aggressive maybe with each other in terms of their gameplay and practices and things, but it actually, through the coaching and staff, changed their mindset around that to the point where they actually became more aggressive and challenged each other. So they were thinking more competitively and strategically. So their practices got better, and as athletes and performers, they got better and stronger, and eventually led to a multitude of national championships. So take a look at that and think through competitively and strategically. We at the Market Center do that as well, and we're constantly monitoring the competitive landscape. It is the most competitive time in real estate ever. We're not just competing anymore with the local brokerages, the mom and pops. We're competing with online and these new tech companies, virtual brokerage models, transaction-based models. Every model, I think any model that's out there in real estate is in existence all right now at the same time. So think competitively, strategically. Number 8 is think standards. This is going to point towards our value proposition later on and what we do as agents in terms of our fiduciary and functional responsibilities. But your standards are what you become known for. So when you think about your value proposition and what you do, think about your standards. Think about the way you conduct your business, the way you follow up with people, the way you talk to people, communicate with people, how you follow up with the paperwork and the transaction. All those things from the beginning to the end and even beyond the transaction, how you stay in touch with those people are your standards. If you're looking to build a bigger business, if you're looking to hire an administrative assistant or even grow into a team, your standards now as a solo agent will become the basis for those opportunities later on. So think standards. And there's a lot of standards out there you can follow. Standards can be models as well. Number 9, think service. Think service here is really about our value proposition, our purpose. Top real estate agents have a clear understanding around their purpose of why they do what they do and why they should be hired. Why you should hire them to do to do. Value proposition. The best real estate agents are able to explain that. It's the 30-second elevator speech that they can share their value statement. Take a look at. I want to just sit here for 1 second and take a look on page 95. We mentioned this last time. These are the top 10 service areas of the seller value proposition and the top 10 service areas of the buyer value proposition. So let's just pull that up here real quick. Okay. All right, so a great exercise activity here would be to go and take a look at this. Top of page 95. Go through this list. Take the time to go through this list and reflect on it yourself. Think about what you're doing now. Think about what you're doing well, and think about what you'd like to improve upon. Things that maybe you've struggled with in the past, maybe something you're not great at. There's also opportunities to get leverage in some of these areas. So if you need help with marketing and social media, that could be something you could get leverage on. You could get help from somebody to do that. If you're a dual career and you have limited time in your schedule, maybe a transaction coordinator, someone that can help manage all that during the week would be helpful. That would free you up to do more lead generation in the evenings and to follow up with your clients and for appointments. But there's a lot of things in here. This has been identified by the top agents as their top 10 service areas. But go through this exercise and see what you're doing well and what you would like to do better. And if it's something that you're not doing and you'd like to incorporate it into your business, that's also important. Maybe that's the one thing you want to do for 2021. Top 10 buyer value proposition. Oops, sorry. You'll notice there's a lot of similarities, a lot of the same activities: needs analysis, pre-qualification, neighborhood information, negotiations, closings, post-closings, all very similar to the sellers. Take a look at some of the individual unique items in here on the buyer side. And again, same exercise. What are you doing well? What would you like to improve upon? On page 96, we talk about the difference between functionary versus fiduciary. This book was written in 2003, yet this conversation is now more important than ever. When we talk about the virtual models, the online companies, the tech companies that are coming in, and we talk about tech-enabled agent versus agent-enabled technology, it comes down to functional versus fiduciary. So on the functionary side, these are all the activities and things that would be done, say, by agent-enabled technology. So maybe there's an online company that's got a great web platform and they have a lot of customers going there looking for homes and looking for their home price estimates, but they don't have the salesperson. They still have to connect it to a person, to a human being, to an actual live real estate agent. So on the left-hand side, that online website provider, again, is a low-level relationship. They assume little responsibility. It's low skill, right? Records information, sure, but are they going to be responding to needs? Not as quickly as the in-person live. Sure, there's some data there, but the quality of the data could be subjective and may not be high quality. There's also other limited activities in terms of legal responsibilities, task management and follow-up. The decision making, following rules and procedures. The online resource could easily be replaced, and it's minimally paid. So this is all why these online providers are able to offer like low 1% type of transactions or deals, because they're really not offering the level of service that a full service real estate agent provides. Now on the right-hand side, this is the highest and best value, highest and best purpose that a real estate agent can provide. It's a high-level fiduciary, accepts responsibility at a high level, masters skills at a high level. It's not just compiling data, but it's perceiving information, it's anticipating, interpreting the data. There's also a big picture viewpoint, through the needs analysis, et cetera. It's really diving deeper into the person, into the buyer or seller's needs and wants and interests. It's also more of an advisory and consultant relationship. It is self-directed. We accept maximum legal responsibility, right? We have state compliance requirements, office compliance, and we maintain records for a number of years. And we're responsible for those transactions years into the future. We own the result. We don't only just show and tell, but we also guide and educate people along the process. We're involved in the decision making. We use judgment and our intuition, and the goal is to be essentially irreplaceable. And we are highly paid. We're compensated because we do things at a higher level. This is why we charge a 3% commission, because we're going to be doing things. We're going to be doing more at a higher level than just a functional relationship. I would take this figure right out of MREA, scan it, and put it into your listing presentation or your buyer listing presentation, and explain this. When somebody asks you about an online company or another discounted opportunity, explain to them the trade-offs. You always get what you pay for. That's always going to be the same situation, same conversation. So take a look at that. And as you work on your value proposition yourself, think about and reflect on these things. Again, what do you do well? What are you passionate about? Focus on the parts that you like the most, doing the most, and make that your value proposition. All right, so enough on the 9 ways that MREA thinks. Let's go back to the slides here real quick. Talk about value proposition. So pages 94, 95, this is really what we just covered. Go back and reflect on figures 5, 6, and 7. Right. Turning to page 98, we're going to talk about the 3 L's of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. We already touched on them previously, but we'll continue to expand on them. You'll notice that throughout the book. There's not only just the basics, but then there's add-ons later on as we go into the MREA models as well. So here we're talking about the 80-20 rule. 80% of our results comes from 20% of our actions. This goes back to a study originally in Italy back in the early 1900s. Vilfredo Pareto identified that a certain amount of crops in agriculture, in fact 80% of it, was produced from 20% of the land. And when he looked at some other things, he started to realize that this was a common rule. And since that time, we can find it to be true in a lot of different places of our life. If you think about your wardrobe, for example, the clothes that you wear. If you looked at your closet, you wear 80% of your clothes, you wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time. Same thing in the kitchen. Take a look in the kitchen. Look at all the inside all your cabinets. What you realize is that you're only using about 20% of the plates and silverware in the kitchen 80% of the time. There's a lot of other stuff that sits around and doesn't get used. Maybe once in a while, but it's not being used all the time. Same thing applies to our business. So there's 20% of our activities that are going to be really important in generating 80% of the results. Really, it's lead generation. If you don't get the lead generation piece right, if you don't have leads leading to appointments, you're not going to have the conversions to buyers and listing opportunities and closed transactions. The 20% for the Millionaire Real Estate Agent starts with the leads, goes back to the foundational models, leads, listings, and leverage. Lead generation versus lead receiving. Take a look at this on page 99. Lead receiving is when you have leads coming in, but not from the direct result of your actions. Maybe it's coming in from not directly activities, but maybe from past clients or something else, just friends and family. But it's not the result of your direct lead generation activities. Lead generation, on the other hand, direct prospecting versus marketing. those are actual lead generation activities. So when you're out marketing, the different forms of marketing, and then actually direct prospecting, door knocking, cold calls, warm calls, things like that. You can get lulled into a more comfortable space with lead receiving, but be aware it's a very dangerous place, because the reason that you're receiving those leads could change at any time. And whatever market conditions or other conditions that are happening that's causing those leads to come in, if that changes and you don't have any other methods of lead generation going on, you're going to find yourself in a problem really fast. The other thing too is not to back off on lead generation. Sometimes agents will get too busy and they'll say, I have enough business, I'm going to back off on the lead generation. Don't. Maintain lead generation consistently throughout, regardless of everything else downstream. If you get too busy and you have too many leads, you can refer them out. It's a good problem to have. Cherry pick what you like, refer the rest, but maintain lead generation and always be cautious and aware of lead receiving. I know I've gone through that myself. There were times, and maybe even right now, I have leads coming in that were not the result of my direct actions. I'm not getting the results that I want right now in my lead generation activities. I need to do something there differently, but I can't get lulled into the sense of these other leads coming in is there to offset it. That's not the case. Your actions, activities are the direct result. It's going to produce the most consistent leads and results for you. Listings, the main virtue of seller listings, we covered this earlier, and it's also on page 102. Again, this is the high leverage maximum earning opportunity. Having signs in the front yards of houses will always be your biggest #1 source of leads. A lot of agents, top agents, will say it's referral, but if you look more closely, those agents are top listing agents, and it's really the signs in the yard that's generating that constant contact with not only, yes, their previous customers and clients in their database, but also the new people in the neighborhood. Someone who didn't buy their house through them, or someone who was already living there before they moved in, now sees this person and sees your name on the street. The compounding effect of having listings and signs in the street is paramount. It's the most important thing, and really need to focus on that and make that part of your business. Leverage, again, talking about the who, the how, and the what. Who's going to do it, how they're going to do it, and what will they do with it. Take a look at figure 11, again, just to focus on, just to emphasize the value of the listings. Pull this up to share it again. Seller listing opportunities. Multiple opportunities here. More control of your time is a big one. You're only going to be able to service a certain number of buyer leads a month, but you'll be able to service maybe 3, maybe even 4 times as many seller leads a month. Again, take the time to review this, reflect on this, think about what you're doing well, what you're not doing well, and if there's an area of opportunity for improvement, please let us know. We'll be happy to help you on that. So I think, all right. Well, I think we're really getting to the end of today's session. We talked about thinking. Next, we're going to get into earning. We're going to start looking at the models next. We'll start with know our numbers next. A couple things just to point out at the end of each chapter. There is a section of points to review. Take a look at these if you don't have time to read along in the book. Take a look at the end of each section of the book. It's going to highlight the most important concepts from that section. Also take a look online for copies of the MREA at kellerink.com. The books are there, but again, if you need a copy, we have them in the office and we'll be happy to give you one. But take a look at the top of this page under resources. The charts and figures are there for download from MREA. All of the figures and resources are there, and there's a few other items in there to take a look at. All right, well, that page is loaded. You just have to trust me that it's there. Also, take a look online at Keller Williams University. There is the course here, which is we're using the presentation from today, the MREA, the 24 topics. You can come here. You don't have to purchase the materials. They are available for download here at PDF file. You can download the student manual to follow along some of the exercises there. We're not going to go through that in detail during the session. We're going to stay at a high level and just focus on getting through the slides and talking to those. All right, does anybody have any questions so far? Thanks for joining us today. Mickey, is there anything that resonated with you, something that you took away from today, something that you're going to go back and work on?
I'm going to review the information. I lost half of what you were doing because I was disconnected. So I have to review it and then I can comment better.
All right, no worries. Yeah, definitely let me know. We can jump back into this. I know you weren't able to attend the last week.
Right.
But yeah, I'd love to help you with that.
Yep, thank you.
Anne-Marie, thanks for joining us today. Wendy, thanks for being here today. All right, everyone, till next Thursday, we're signing off for now. Thanks for joining us. Onward and upward. Hey, Miss Amy.